Insurance companies have a tiering system for everybody. And I'm going to go over and explain what those are so you can understand which tier you should be in. Because if you're with a company that doesn't support the tier that you're part of, you're probably paying more than you should for your car insurance and home insurance. Pretty much any insurance does it this way. There's 3 tier levels. There's preferred, non-preferred, and standard. And I kind of reversed those. So preferred, standard, and non-preferred, right? Those are the tiering systems. We'll go over what makes those up here in just a second, but it's essentially preferred is what you would expect. Perfect credit, they have nice vehicles, they're in a good location, very low risk, don't have any claims. Preferred, right? That's the typical 55-year-old, have the good age, because age can knock you out of a tier. And then the standard tier is probably 70% of the US, right? So it's may have a ticket, have okay cars, basically me, right? You might, if you look like me, you're preferred, you're standard, right? Sometimes haven't had an accident, you have okay credit or a good credit, but you don't have this. It's just a mix of there's a few negatives, there's a lot of positives, and then in general, you're just a good risk. And most of your insurance companies are going to do that standard tier. And then there's the non-preferred, which is what we just call high risk. You have 2 DUIs, your credit's horrible. Honestly, if you got out of some sort of legal action, usually you just jump down to the non-preferred just because it usually messes everything up on paper. And then you got to work your way back up. Had a couple claims, you've canceled your last 5 insurances, you're bouncing around from one company to the next. That's a non-preferred. And there are companies that focus on that. That's actually their hotspot that they want to focus on. So it doesn't mean that you're necessarily SOL. It just means that you're in a different bracket. So if you want to move from any of the tier on up, there's a couple factors that are going to make a difference that you want to focus on. One is driving. Just stay alert, be available and paying attention. You're not on your phone. You're driving down the road. You're not causing any disturbances. You're not getting speeding tickets. You're not having accidents. You're working on maybe even taking a self-defensive driving class just to make sure that you've got all of the skills that you need to be a good driver. You really should be 25 and older to essentially get into that preferred tier if you're trying to move up, because it's a lot has to do with age. But doing all of those things now will start to impact that tiering later on. Maintaining coverage for a long period of time will also impact that. So if you've had insurance for 6 months, that's great, but it's not better than the person that's had it for 3 years or the guy that's had it for 5 years. And then it caps off at 5 years. Typically anything past 5 years, although it does show really long loyalty, doesn't really make as big of an impact. So how long should you shop? Maybe every 5 years, but then try to find one that isn't having a lot of changes so you can stay with them for another 5 years to get to that next tiering level. If you struggle with paying the bill, then you need to find something that's less expensive. You need to know that, because if you stay with that tiering and you have lapse, and you have missed payments, that's going to affect the level that you get into, because having those payments, yeah, there's a grace period and that doesn't show up on a report. So if you pay 5 days late, 6 days late, and they're like, great, you're fine, you're in our grace period, we'll let you pay it, nothing will happen. It won't show up on a report. What happens is, what a lot of these companies have started to do, and they've been doing them for a few years, is they're starting to do what's called a 1-day lapse. So they'll reinstate a policy once you've gone usually 14 days and you pay it on the 15th day, or they gave you a date but you didn't, whatever, you paid it the next day. Then they're going to give you a lapse. That renewal is going to go up. They might have given you a better deal initially, but now when you go to shop, it doesn't show that you've had those 4 years with them. You had 4 years elapse, and then you had 6 months. Now you're just stuck with the 6 months. There is no fixing that. There's no going back and saying, I can show that I've been a loyal customer for 5 years and I just had a hiccup. You have that hiccup, it's there. It's not removable in the insurance industry. If you had it removed before, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear that. That would be cool. You can also request a credit report from your insurance. And if you're working with an agent, honestly, they won't know what to do. I half the time know what to do. And it's like, we're just gonna call the agency and the company for you and then have them send you a report. Knowing what your insurance score or credit score is on their system plays a factor. Like we said, payments, credit, all of that does affect what you're gonna pay, but it also affects the tiering that you're in. so you can see the progress as your insurance or credit score gets better and better. You're going to eventually have that higher tier to where every company wants to give you the best rate and best deal possible. By the way, if you are shopping for any type of insurance, I'll put a link in the description below where you can work with a local agent, shop it across multiple companies. They're independent. Typically, it's the best way to do it. If we're going to mix you with these tiering companies, you want to find out who's going to give you the best options. If you're thinking of shopping around, that is the next piece to take action on is, okay, if I'm going to start this and I know I'm in X tier, I'm in the non-preferred, or I'm in the preferred, or I'm in the standard tier, whatever my tiering is, I want to move up into that next one. I want every company to be at my door and just say, give me the best price. We want you. Please don't leave us. Then the next step is to shop, is to start with the company that's going to give you the best success, or successibility, I guess you could say, if that's a word, is the best start for success, because you got to pay the bill. It's got to be the right coverage, because there's no point in buying the insurance unless you're just looking for paper, which there's companies out there that'll do that. They're cheap and they'll insure barely nothing. And the ability to grow with that company, that's more of a long term. I usually spend about 8 years with each insurance company until I've decided, okay, everything's improved. Now let me take a look at what are my other options. Sometimes raising your deductible will make an impact. So if it's not affordable currently and you don't want to shop and you're like, I just want to stay where I'm at, because if you trust who you're with now, that's more important than you shopping around, right? If you can, maybe you have to raise the deductible to try to make it more affordable. Yes, you're taking a risk that you could be paying more out of pocket, but you're also lowering the cost. So now it's affordable, you're not having the lapse, you're not having that 1 day gap in between, and you've got it correctly. Maybe just review the policy with your current agent and they can go over what coverages or discounts that you may be missing. Some things to consider. Pieces that affect this tiering is going to be age, gender. Not so much anymore. That's been outlawed. I think there's a few states that still have gender in there, but it's a moot point. Marital status used to affect it, but a lot of lawsuits, being married doesn't necessarily correlate the discount. So most places, I don't think any place can actually count the marital status anymore. Driving experience plays a big factor. You can't control that. It's what age did you get licensed? How old are you now? That's your driving age. Driving record plays a huge factor. If you're getting tickets, you're going to be in the standard tier. If you get a lot of tickets, you're going to be in the non-preferred tier. So it's just what company is going to be the best fit for you. Previous insurance claims, that's going to matter only for a certain time. Most states, probably half of the states are 3 years, the other half are 5 years. So if you're in a state like Michigan, it's a 5-year history. If you're in a state like Texas, it's a 3-year history, but they count not at fault claims against you. So it's the way the state is. It's not insurance, it's the way they wrote the rules. So there's different pieces to each state. Previous insurance coverage matters. If you have high coverage and you go low, it's gonna look better. They're gonna give you a better deal. But when it renews, now you've got low coverage. With low coverage, it's gonna cost you more. If you're at high coverage and you're sticking with high coverage, then you're good. You're gonna have a better tiering. And if you're going up in coverage, it's gonna be a little bit of a red flag, but it still will cost a little bit extra for initially, but it'll still help you, right? So when it renews and all the shopping happens, having the higher limit is a benefit to you. Credit score, we talked about that. We don't need to go in depth. And then the vehicle that you have is going to play a factor. The symbol of the vehicle, so every car has a symbol. It's basically the risk, how many people died in this car in accidents, how much damage did it cause, are the parts even available, all of the pieces that make up the risk of a car. It's all risk. And that car is going to change on symbols. So if you have a low symbol, that's a preferred, right? And you're a preferred, you know, tickets, all of the things, that profile is going to add up to the tiering that you're going to be part of. So Mark, what's the point of having a tiering system? There's a couple things. One, most of this is from customers complaining that I'm a great driver, I'm a this, I'm a that. Why aren't I getting a better deal? I don't cause any claims, That's there. That's one of the reasons that's in place. The benefit to you is if you're in a location and you move to a city or a location that has really good tiering customers, so really good risks, that's going to improve yours because the location does matter with your insurance policy. If you're in a city that has a lower tier all around you, that risk is higher. They have more claims, more accidents, more deaths, more failed policies, less longevity. There's a good and a bad, right? So if you're in there, it's okay, we're kind of keeping people down, but it's a matter of you being a good risk in that location is actually helping your neighbor. So we can start billing your neighbor. That would be awesome. If you could just literally bill your neighbor for being a good driver. In general, that's the tiering systems, the 3 levels that you need to focus on when you're trying to get the best insurance price. It starts with having that right company in the beginning. If you are looking for that, I'll put the link in the description below. Otherwise, if you're trying to figure out what coverages you should carry, I've got a car insurance 101 that'll go a little bit more in depth on something like that. If you're looking for the best discounts and you're just trying to get some cheaper deals, this is usually what a lot of customers are missing as far as discounts. I'm Mark with Think Insurance. I'll see you in the next one.